Welcome to the HawksZone Rundown. It's just me tonight, everyone. But you know what? I've got Griffin Sturgeon here from Seattle Overload to come in. We're going to talk Combine, give you guys a preview tonight. Griff's going to give us his 8 guys that he's looking forward to watching and his sleeper as well. I'm going to do the same thing, and then we'll give you guys what you didn't get on Monday, your live mock draft. So me and Griffin are going to go through. We're going to make our picks. We're going to see how that board falls to us, and hopefully things work out in our favor in the mock draft. But Griff, how you doing, man?
Good. Thanks, Bryce, for having me back. I'm excited to talk some shop with you and get into this draft season.
Yeah, it's going to be really exciting. So everyone get your questions, your comments in, pile them into that chat so me and Griff have something to talk to you guys about throughout the process. Give us your feedback throughout on how this draft process goes. But right after this, guys, we're going to get into it.
So y'all can sit here and ask me all the questions y'all want to.
Don't you ever talk about me!
Yeah, let's go. It's go time, baby.
Here comes Geno, steps up, takes that shot to the end zone. It is Metcalf, 20.
I'm just about that action, boss.
You about to go get it. You just like to do it.
That's what it is.
Off me.
Nobody in the world can do it.
Are you kidding me? Trying to do that. Pass is caught back in. Jackson Smith is jigged on the surface. Music moves in. Throws it forward. Oh my goodness, he caught it. By Leonard Williams.
This is the HawksZone Rundown with your hosts, Ryan and Bryce.
All right, everyone. So, Griff, let's start this off a little bit with what we heard from John Schneider and Mike Macdonald over the last 2 days. So, let's start with John. What was your takeaways from John's press conference the other day?
Yeah, John always plays it close to the vest. It's kind of hard to hack his code. With regard to the whole Geno conversation, what's going on there? He was kind of playing both sides of the fence, right? But I think in this case, the question for him isn't does he want to keep Geno or not, at least for 2025. I think him playing coy was specific to not wanting to give Geno's agent any more leverage in the negotiations. So I don't think this is a case of we're not trading Russell Wilson and then they trade Russell Wilson. I think this is a case of we are going to bring Geno back, but at what number? That's what is up in the air for him. As for the other stuff, I mean, he's, stronger, faster, whatever, like the stuff he normally says. I think he made some cool comments with the running backs, which I know a lot of us many roll their eyes at with him, but I think he's got a really good point this draft for running back. And with who they just hired for offensive coordinator, they're definitely going to be thinking about the running back. I don't know at what round, but it seemed to be same old with John. I didn't really parse anything that jumped out in particular. How about you though?
So it was interesting. I went back and watched John's press conference from last year. Yeah. And then I watched this one again after I saw it live. And I found his tone different this year in a lot of ways. In some areas, like he made some interesting comments to the fact of like home field advantage and how they've kind of basically let the fan base down by not being in the playoffs for 2 years in a row, which was, kind of interesting because that's John actually admitting some fault in that I found. Mm-hmm. The other thing for me that was interesting was it was not so much his press conference, but when he got on to Pro Football Talk with Florio and Sems and some of the comments he made there about Geno Smith and how they view Geno and they're building this around Geno, right? Which, like you alluded to with the Russell Wilson comments, when Russ was getting traded, none of those conversations were being had during the draft, but hey, we're building this around Russ and so on. Like that just wasn't there. I think there's really been a self-evaluation done in that building on last season. There were a lot of issues that caused some of the issues for Geno on the field with how bad this offensive scheme was fitted to this offensive line, the lack of the run game, and a lot of those things. And he also brought up, how Geno played down the stretch injured. I think as much as people say, oh, well, John's not a Geno fan, this was the first time I've heard John in a while sound more like a Geno supporter than he has in the past. Like, last year we heard all about Drew Lock and they kept talking about him even though he wasn't under contract. And it was that whole weird dynamic. Yeah. I think what they've come to the conclusion is Geno is the right quarterback for this team right now. Mm-hmm. And there isn't necessarily an immediate pivot to a succession plan where they're not taking a giant step back. And I think that's the biggest thing I took away on the Geno comments from John. The other one for me, running back, again, I agree with you. It was really interesting to make his running back kind of comments, and I think they will take a running back this year.
Mm-hmm.
The other part for me was how he talked about the offensive line and this, being tough now, and we need to be more physical and faster. And those are the identity things that we want to staple up, be with. And it was interesting to hear him talk about that and how the offensive line leads the charge in that. So, and then you pivot to what this coaching staff has been assembled. They have really made an emphasis on hiring guys with O-line backgrounds, whether they played the position, have coached it for years. Like, they've really made a strong pivot there. So it's very interesting to see that is the pivot that the Seahawks did do.
Yeah, they've definitely loaded up at offensive line, coaching staff wise, and I also think it's interesting who they gave what title. So for Dennison to get run game coordinator and then Outen to get run game specialist, that made me think that they want a lot of hands in the run game pot, so that Benton doesn't feel like he has to put out all these fires in all directions, and that maybe he can focus a little bit more with the installing the protections and stuff for the offensive line, and maybe coaching them more up on an individual basis. Obviously, he's the offensive line coach, so he has a huge part in the run game as well. But it did make me think, like, are they trying to get everything they can out of Benton with regard to the pass game as well? And that Outen and Dennison can have kind of take some pressure off of him in the run game. I don't know. That's me putting on the tinfoil hat a little bit there. I do think, though, and this is not to stray too much, they're definitely going to run more than they did with Grubb and with Waldron. But I do think they're also going to pass more than Kubiak has in recent years. They might meet in the middle there. And primarily part of that is, bow tying this in with Geno. So they know Geno can handle it. They know he can handle a heavy dose of drop back and handling all the operational aspects of the position that, even Derek Carr, as advanced as he is in the grand scheme. I think Geno can handle more than Carr can. I think Geno can handle more than Brock Purdy can, even when it comes to just pure bang out the reads, gun 3 drops, gun 5 drops, reading out the whole field. You can put more on Geno's shoulders. Now, they talked about how so that he can play fast and everything, and how they want everything to look like their run game. So it's they want to make it easier for Geno, but I think they're trying to chase that positive feedback loop between the coaching staff and the players. So I am excited for all that. To your comments about Schneider and building around Geno, it also, like, regardless of what the information game is with not wanting to reveal your hand too quickly, it does make sense that it would take Schneider longer than maybe a coach would to come around on Geno for the superficial reasons. Because Schneider, we know Schneider's type. His type is the raw traits guy. And Geno has an arm, but he doesn't have just pure throw power. He doesn't even have Drew Lock's arm in terms of throw power. Now, obviously the accuracy's there, but Geno's a pocket quarterback, and he wants to bang out his reads and get the ball, throw a strike, to an area of the field. And that's just not Schneider's type of guy. So he certainly can appreciate Geno, and I think he does now. And he's kind of seen what he's dealt with the past 3 years up front in the schematic turnover as well. But yeah, it's as Schneider goes, I agree with you in the conversation with Pro Football Talk with Sims and Florio that was the most effusive he's been in his kind of praise of Geno, I think. So I'm definitely with you there.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Then you listen to Mike Macdonald today. There were some, you could definitely sense how much more, I don't know if it's relaxed he is as a head coach now that it's around year 2 for him, but also just him talking about Clint Kubiak and this offensive staff that they've assembled. I feel there's a sense for him of relief that these guys know what they're doing. Their identity matches what I want, right, and the complementary football will be there. Where I don't know if we could say that last year when he was putting the staff together. You now see that him being hired as late as he was caused so many issues, I think, in the construction on the offensive side of the ball to get that vision in place. And, I was, we had Jackson Bevins on the other day, And that was one thing I even said, like, I was excited when they hired Ryan Grubb as offensive coordinator, because I went, hey, like, they've pivoted. They've gone in a different direction. This is either going to work really, really well and they're going to look like geniuses, or this might not work out.
Right.
Well, we got the latter of that. And, now that they've pivoted to Clint Kubiak, the biggest thing I noticed is, like you said, the coaches that have been put in, Rick Dennison, I think it's, Greg Otten, you got John Benton, sorry. All these guys they've now put in have so much NFL experience that I think it's going to make that transition so much easier. Like, you're not having to really do a massive install and get on the same page. Like, Kubiak knows the system, and all these coaches, even ones that have been holdovers, like a, Polamalu at running back, have worked with him in the past.
Yeah.
So there's not a learning curve there of, I got to learn Clint's system. It's like plug and play. Here we go.
Right.
Which I think should allow for a faster track in the mini camp for these guys learning this offense.
For sure. I agree with 1,000% there. Then even like when, as you get into the season, and not even into the season, but in any given game, when you have a head coach who is, on the mic with his OC and he's like, hey, what about more of this? What about less of that? Or when he's in his staff meetings week to week and he's like, what about this theme or that theme? When he's having that conversation with Grubb has to go into modes of offense that he himself has never necessarily coached before. So you can tell, like, hey, when they trot out like a run heavy game plan, it's like the same 2 runs 10 times over. And it's clearly like he's trying to reinvent himself as he goes. When the head coach now is going to have the conversation with his OC, with an OC with the clarity and conviction that Kubiak has in the NFL experience, he's going to know exactly how to incorporate Macdonald's directive into his pre-existing structure. And there's no like inefficiency or lost time or spinning your tires with that. He's like, oh yeah, coach. Okay. Yeah. We'll just spend more in this bucket, spend more time in that category. And I can weave that into my pre-existing offense. And then even maybe more of a positive domino effect there. Macdonald knows he can spend less time micromanaging the offense and then spend even more time with his defense and continue to improve that. So I think in a lot of ways, the move they made with Kubiak was just the right move for the team. I mean, we were all rooting for Grubb. It just wasn't the right fit for anybody, and this clearly is a fit. It's a fit for Geno. It's a fit for the receivers. I think it'll be a fit for the O-line. So all in all, it's I think things are looking up there.
Yeah. And, I think, you flipped, like you said, on the defensive side there for Mike. Now he can even, like you said, put more time into building this defense. We heard last year how they had to have like a midseason reset on how much they were actually doing. Mm-hmm. I think that might have been in parcel to the fact he had to deal so much with how this offense wasn't functioning and spending time there as the head coach. You do have to do those things. I think now with, the guys that he's gotten that side of that ball now in the building, I don't think he's going to have to worry about that. He has his now head coach on offense, and now he can solely focus, on the rest of the team. Yes. But the defensive side and getting it even more improved from where it was last year. Speaking of, the combine and, these guys being there, Griff, who are the guys you're most excited to look for? And so we kind of went over your 8 guys. You sent me a list of the 8 guys you're most excited to see at this combine and 1 sleeper. So I'll bring that up now onto the screen here for everyone to see, but let's get you to talk about some of these guys, Griff.
Yeah, so you might notice some themes with the position selection. I tried to take 2 or 3 guys from the positions that I think they're going to focus the most in the first 2 rounds in particular, that being tackle, guard, or rather guards that might have been a tackle in college. Maybe they'll take a right tackle, I don't know. But then as tight end, linebacker, then safety. So kind of like the spine of the team, right up the middle of the field, in between the hashes type players. And so I took the guys that I think are either at the top of the position or kind of like the value pick in the second, maybe third round. And then, Kaiser at the end, I think he'll be like a late day 2 guy or early day 3 guy that I think could actually end up being an impact player at some point. But so Armand Membu, Marcus Embo, those guys are both college tackles, as you know, Bryce. And I think both of them would be awesome right tackles in the NFL. But I think in Seattle's case, they would pick them to try to have them play guard. And I think that, I mean, they have all the tools. And I think that Benton would, I guess what I'm saying is they fit Benton's scheme really, really well. the lateral quickness, they get off the ball, they take really good angles, transitioning to the second level. I think Embo is a little more nasty than Membu, but then Membu, just his lower body movement is like really hard to find. I think this might be a little bit of an unpopular opinion on Embo, but I think he's a first rounder. I think both of these guys, I would have taken them over maybe three guys in last year's loaded offensive tackle class to play tackle or guard. So just to kind of contextualize them, I think really highly of them. Tyler Warren, and Bryce, if you want to jump at any point, let me know. But Tyler Warren, I mean, I think he's the best tight end in the class. He's kind of like the do-it-all guy. We're going to be a Big 12 personnel offense now. I just think you could put him anywhere. He's a legit Y. He can block guys. He can, disrupt the 6 technique. But then you can also put him in the slot when it's X and long. And he can just cook guys. And then he's got a huge catch radius. And Geno loves to throw trick shots. And unfortunately, as good as the receiving and tight end core is overall for the Seahawks the past couple of years, they don't really have a guy that can just pluck the ball out of the air, ironically, as good as they all are. So Warren would give Geno the kind of skill set that he hasn't had yet. And then in Loveland's case, so Loveland is kind of more of the less blocker type and more of the pure receiver type of a tight end. But I mean, I don't think he's a bad blocker. I mean, some of his reps as a Y at Michigan when he's in line, he can actually block people. He's not great at it, but he's good enough to warrant putting there. But in transitioning him to Seattle, well, knowing how much Shanahan and Kubiak, they like to move guys around and get into different formation sets out of the same personnel package, he can be your wild card. So, I mean, you could put him in the slot, you can put him at H-back, you can put him, isolate him as an X, like 1x3 sets, or you can stick him at the Y, or he can be your second tight end as part of a wing when you form a wing with AJ Barner in all likelihood, and maybe Noah Fant. And it goes without saying he's an excellent receiver. I mean, he can attack the ball in the air. His routes are really crisp. He might be, in just pure route running, he might have Tyler Warren beat. So I think he's a really high-end player. Jihad Campbell, 6'3", 245, movement skills really good, can take on contact at linebacker, can stack and shed guards. And then his coverage skills are really good. Like Alabama will ask their Mike linebacker to match guys. He can carry guys downfield. And then also, like, he knows where the dig route windows are when it comes to spot dropping. And so few college linebackers know like how to spot drop because they're not really asked to. So Campbell has actual chops there. Carson Schwessinger, I think, in coverage, he's really similar to Campbell. You can give him really tough assignments, but then he's just a little bit lighter and slightly less physical. He's willing, but he has less punch when he comes downhill. I think he keys well, can key and sniff out run concepts well. It's just he's not as physical as Campbell is. Malachi Starks, he's kind of a do-it-all safety, 6'1", 210. That's exactly Macdonald's kind of safety. He can play to the field boundaries, some deep center field, but then you can also put him in the slot, have him carry tight ends, and then get dirty in the run game as well, which is, that evokes Witherspoon, that evokes Kyle Hamilton, that kind of player. And then Jack Kaiser, so he's kind of your classic, in my view, your classic average athlete who's a great player. I think he's really smart in coverage. I think he's really dependable in the run game. Notre Dame, they're kind of like they give their linebackers like the graduate course of linebacker play. They ask them to do tough things, and it's so hard to evaluate college linebackers because they're not really asked to do things that they're going to be asked to do in the NFL. They're just chasing bubble screens down on the flat all day or being blitzed, and it's really frustrating because you're only dealing with traits. You can't really identify their skills, just their requisite traits. So in Kaiser's case, he's easier to eval and see like what he's actually capable of because Notre Dame actually asks him to do NFL-esque things. So it might be a case of high floor, low ceiling there. I don't know. We'll see how he tests. If he runs anything faster than like say a 4.65 on his 40, and if he has a good jump, a good broad jump, I'll be all in on him early in the third round. So that's where I'm at with these guys. I don't know. What are your takes? I know I just rambled.
No, it's all good. And that's what I wanted you to do, Griff. I want you to get all your, knowledge out. For me, when I look at it, the tight ends, especially, like I kind of taken this stance and studied. I've really dove into Clint Kubiak's offense. I followed all that tree all the way back to, you know, Bill Walsh and Mike Holmgren when they ran it in San Francisco, because that's really where it spawned from, right? Mike Shanahan learned it from Mike Holmgren when he took over as OC for the Niners. He passed it on to Gary. Gary's kind of done a couple things with it. So the one thing for me is the use of the two tight ends, like you were saying, the 12 personnel, but how one of those tight ends really truly becomes the third receiving option. And so we've been so used to this year having, you know, 11 personnel and empty sets and all this, where we had multiple receivers on the field.
For sure.
For me, that tight end spot is going to be, I think, more crucial and probably something Seattle may take earlier than people expect because of its involvement in this offense. And they're going to want someone, you know, to go with, you know, AJ Barner, because we saw what he turned into throughout the year, which surprised, I think, a lot of us. Definitely surprised me from what I saw in training camp, where it's like, he doesn't really move that great. Is he really going to be able to develop into a receiving threat? And you saw him do that throughout the year as it went on. So, you know, you talk about Loveland there and Warren. Warren would be ideal. I think he's a more well-rounded tight end than Colson. But for me, I like both of them. If somehow Seattle decided to take one of them and they fell, I wouldn't have a problem with it. The offensive linemen, like when we were doing these lists, you took two guys right away from me immediately, because I was like, I would love either one of those guys. I like both their fits into this outside zone running scheme. Membu, I really like, because you're hedging, I think, with a better player in some aspects if Abe Lucas doesn't work. And we had Parker Blake on the other day, who is, you know, covers the Bengals, but he's really into O-line, and that's like his niche. He played it in college, and, you know, that's what he studies. And he even said, he goes, the ideal thing for Seattle is to kind of hedge against Abe Lucas, because we're not sure what he's going to be next year. Even though he's getting a full healthy offseason, it is a contract year for him. And if you can hedge and get a guy that, like you said, can slide into guard, but then as well, if something goes wrong with Lucas, kick him out to right tackle, and you're still developing a Christian Haynes or somebody else, or say they sign someone in free agency, then you're in a better spot than if you just take, say, a pure guard that you don't have that flexibility with. He also made a point too, which I think is, you know, kind of alludes to the two guys, is he says there's a lot of value in day two, round 2 and round 3 for starting caliber guards and linemen in this draft. And we'll see with my list, one of the guys I put on there that is still my favorite and would love if he somehow fell to Seattle. But overall, man, like I loved your list of guys. They're definitely guys that, for me, I've got circled when I watched the combine this weekend. And I totally agree with you with the linebacker. It goes back to even what you said last year in regards to Tyrese Knight. Like, it's such a hard evaluation because they're not asked to do the same things they're going to be asked to do in the NFL. And I think what we're seeing is that cycle changing in the NFL again, where NFL offenses went to this pass happy, bubble screen, RPO, all this kind of stuff that they took from college, when NFL defenses were built differently and were taking advantage with their speed. And now the NFL defenses have adjusted with 2 highs and faster players. And now the NFL is starting to go back the other way to being like, you know, you look at the 2 teams in the Super Bowl, especially the Eagles, running the ball and running backs being of value. And so now you're going to see, I think, an interesting dilemma, because I don't know if college is going to make that switch. And it's going to be interesting to see how that goes for off the ball linebackers now. And do those guys that can really establish themselves as good off ball linebackers see a value spike, whether it comes to the draft and whatnot. So it'll be interesting. Like, you know, and even with Campbell, like, he theoretically is an off ball linebacker, but I see him more as an edge potentially. Like, I think he's more of a Swiss Army knife from Mike Macdonald, where, okay, he can come in and be a backup for us and be an upside backup right now to a Drake Thomas. But if we get into a certain sub package, we can slide him down and bring him off the edge of the blitz.
For sure. Well, to your point, you see some teams really experiment with the same like 4-2-5 personnel, try to create a bear front, and that means they have to roll the will down. And like Campbell's the perfect, you know, candidate for that, as you're saying. So, and like Macdonald, he didn't use as many of them here, but in Baltimore, he had a lot of different fronts. Like some week he would just play straight up 4-3, and he'd roll Malik Harrison on ball Sam like Bruce Irvin. Like Campbell would kind of open up a lot of his front structures. I don't know if he has the perfect linebacker mirror in Seattle for that right now. So yeah, there's something to think about there. Yeah, to your point though, like, so all this nickel, so we might see a return of 12, 13, 21. You're going to be forcing cover 3. Like, our team's going to have a linebacker that can carry 3 vertical again, like that went away for like the past 4 or 5 years because team just said, screw it. We'll stay in poach and have our weak safety handle it. I don't know. Is that guy going to return? And maybe college teams will try to prep their guys for it more. I don't know. Yeah, that'll be cool to see. It's always cool to see how those, schematic cycles play out in real time.
Well, exactly. And I think that's like, I think the big thing that may help push that is this running back class. The talent level in this class, which everyone you've heard from Jim Nagy to all the other analysts, Daniel Jeremiah, all these guys Schneider's now talked about it. How many good starting level running backs are in this draft from like rounds 1 to like 5 even. Mm-hmm. I think that'll help push that envelope of, hey, teams can go back to running the football and make that an established, like you run to win rather than, what it's been the last few years, which has been pass to win. And you look at when you have to deal with these elite NFL offenses like a Kansas City that are very explosive. Sometimes the best thing is being able to chew up the clock and pound the ball down their throat for a 4 to 5 minute drive that takes up a quarter of an entire, like literally 5 to 7 minutes of a quarter, and you give them the ball back, and now they're in a press situation where they're trying to make big plays happen to get back into the game. So it'll be interesting. But yeah, so for my list, which is a little bit different, there's one carryover. I've got a little bit of a different list. So for me, the one carryover is Jihad Campbell. Again, I think he's going to be someone really interested to watch.
Yeah.
I do have a quarterback here. I did this exercise with Dan Viens on his show, and I had a different quarterback. Quinn Ewers is interesting to me, and I know there will be people in the comments and that, oh gosh, we're talking about Quinn Ewers. I think Quinn Ewers will be an interesting guy because I think he's a day 2, maybe day 3 prospect, depending on how he does through this process. But because of the switch in the offensive philosophy and what Kubiak's offense entails, I think Quinn actually fits it better than people realize. He is mobile enough to run the boot package. Mm-hmm. When you look at his throws under 15 yards, 20 to 15 yards, he has good anticipation and he has the ability to fit it into windows. He has decent mechanics. There's some issues, where he needs to, fix his pocket awareness, which can come with coaching and sitting. So I think he'll be an interesting guy. My running back is Quinshon Judkins from Ohio State. Like, I think he's a guy. It's going to be a crowded room, but you can get him in the mid rounds. I think if depending on how he does, he's got a good, ability to catch out of the backfield. And I think he'd complement Charbonnet and Ken Walker really well. And I think it's going to be really interesting if Seattle does take a running back like Judkins. What does that say about either Charbonnet or Kenny McIntosh? Because I think they're looking at this as we're going to add to an already good room. I did pick a receiver, Jalen Royals for me. I'm really interested in him because he gives me kind of some Golden Tate vibes in the way he is. He's such a thick lower body guy. When you look at him, you wouldn't expect him to be overly quick. He's supposed to run somewhere in the 4.4s or even sub 4.4, which would be interesting. Mm-hmm. And I think he comes in and he gives a compliment to JSN and DK because I think right now you're looking, because I don't believe Tyler will be back. Based on how both Mike Macdonald and John Schneider have talked about it, I think they're moving on, and I think, it is the right move. But you're looking for someone that's going to be right now a bonus over Bobo, because I don't look at Bobo as a good fit in this offense now because he can't really win well off the ball. So he's one guy for me. And again, Griff, if you feel like you want to jump in.
Well, yeah, I got a question for you on Royals.
Shoot.
So, like the one thing when I think of the Shanahan Kubiak brand of that offense, like the one route that has seemed to have made a comeback is the 18, 20-yard dig.
Yep.
And like that was a big thing like in the early 2000s, and then like all the dig routes turned into like 10-yard speed cuts, right? Maybe occasional 12 yards. So do you think Royals is a candidate where he can break a dig at 16, 17 yards and catch it at 20? Do you think
I think he is, and I think that's one thing for him. I think, he's got really good separation ability.
Cool.
That's the one thing, watching him at Senior Bowl and stuff, and he was doing a lot of Senior Bowl with a bad foot.
Yeah.
And, he went and did the drills. I think he's a guy that can definitely make, and fit to stretch Seattle's pass game in that. And that was literally one of the things I thought of was like,
yeah,
who are they going to get? Because I don't think JSN's that guy necessarily, because he doesn't have, over the top speed to really push somebody vertically in that sense.
Yeah.
Where I look at, you need someone outside of DK that can do it. I think DK can, and that's what one of the things they're going to ask DK to do. But who do you else have on your offense to do that? And I think that's where a guy like Jalen Royals really can actually give that kind of thing. The other guy that I'd say that I'm really excited to see is Jaden Higgins out of Iowa State.
Okay.
He's another guy for me that I think can do that. And he's such a smooth route runner in and out of his breaks that I think, again, a guy that can run that 15 to 20 yard dig, especially if you put him like on the outside and they're coming in under, your bang 8 or your corner route or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
They basically come in from that. I think both those guys can run that well. So again, I think it's going to allow them to play a little bit more matchup based. So I really like what Jalen Royals could bring if the Seattle Seahawks are able to get him. My tight end's a little bit different. So I went with someone I think they can get in the mid rounds that I think would fit Kubiak's system well. And I went with Brant Kuthi from Utah.
Okay.
So he's had a bit of an injury history, which is why I think he's going to potentially be a mid-round guy, but he's really consistent catching the ball, and he's got some speed. He can block. He comes out of Utah, which, the Utah system's known for creating tough guys. That's kind of their MO down there. And I think he's a guy that, again, he could be an upside player. You take him later on and he can develop, and that's if they keep Noah Fant, which, I was going to bring up a comment here, and I will after this, but where they asked Mike Macdonald about Noah Fant today, and he kind of snapped back saying he likes Noah Fant and thinks he's a well-rounded tight end. So, but yeah, this is a guy I think you can get late. I'm interested to see how he does in some of the testing, especially his lateral, ability to get off quick in and outs and stuff like that. Because that's the thing with the Kubiak system is, and Shanahan, whatever system you really want to call it, the tight ends aren't necessarily vertical as they are running zone breaking over routes and out breaking routes, right? They're looking for those pockets where the defense kind of just doesn't have necessarily the best communication to sit, and they just go and find those spots and sit in it. And how often have we seen, the Tyler Higbees, the George Kittles run that over route off the boot play action, and they dump it to him for 10 yards and he turns it into 30. That's what you're looking for out of your tight end. And you're looking for these guys that can help set the edge on this outside zone scheme.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with you. Then also like the Zorro stuff, like the front side insert with the tight end.
Yeah.
You got to be able to get out and move.
No, exactly. So my offensive lineman is the one you see there at the bottom. It's Donovan Jackson. I think, we saw he was already going to be a really good guard at Ohio State. Then obviously Simmons gets hurt and they kick him out to left tackle, and he plays extremely well at left tackle for Ohio State for the majority of the year. And that's where I think you get a guy that plugs and plays at guard, but is a hedge against your tackle.
Right.
So that's where I go with on the offensive side. Defensive line is Kenneth Grant. Like I really love Kenneth Grant, and I think he'd be a dream fit in McDonald's front. So I'm really interested to see how he does. And is he going to shoot himself so far up the draft board? We can't get a look at him, but if you put him and Byron Murphy together in this front with Leonard Williams and say they do bring back Jaron Reed, like you're setting yourself a strength up with a strength. So Kenneth Grant, someone I'm interested in. We kind of talked about Campbell and the things about him that, I'm interested in. Defensive back, I think safety is a sneaky need or slot corner. And so Jahade Barron is someone I'm interested in, watch him out of Texas. He's quick. I think he's going to be a great nickel in this league. And I think he allows you flexibility with Witherspoon. That's why I think he's someone to be interested to watch. I think Seattle might be is you can come in, you can take reps away so you can keep Devin outside, or you can move Devin around.
Yeah, I think that's really important too, to free up Devin. I agree with you there.
Yeah, so that's, where I'm looking there. And then my sleeper is Harold Fanning Jr., another tight end. I think he could play a really cool H-back role in this offense. They're talking about the Taysom Hill factor. I don't know if Harold Fanning Jr. is a really good pure tight end, but I think he's someone that you could bring in, as an H-back type, a move tight end, the guy that you could even do the Zorro stuff with, and even the stuff where you can get the backside cut release where you're faking it, you have your offset tight end, you're faking stretch right, you boot back and he slides under that end that you leave and you just dump it to him in the flat.
Right.
Those are the kind of things that I think you can do well with Harold Fanning Jr. And he could be a mismatch that way. So that's kind of my list of guys.
I agree with you on Fannin. And then you think about like the H-back and the alignment and stuff. Then you think about motioning him to the slot when you like the matchups, and then running maybe choice or like that the wheel routes and stuff, like Kyle will do with Juice Check a little bit.
Exactly.
Not that he's running choice with Juice Check, but like he can actually weaponize Juice Check downfield, like in the weak side slot occasionally, or strong side. But yeah, you can move him around, kind of starting him out in a quasi tight end backfield-esque role. I think like those are all good players, and I am familiar with most of them. It's just you had to pick. You couldn't pick more than 8, right?
Yeah.
I think what's interesting about both of our lists is we omitted. It's who is not on our list. Yeah. And I think he's not on our list because he's not as a precise scheme fit. That's Tyler Booker.
Yes.
But he's such a good blocker. He's so good. It's just, but it's like, he's not meant for an outside zone. But
no.
So my question, I mean, like if they were still running like the shoddy inside zone from Gunn, oh my God, he'd be blowing people out of the water. But so my question for you is like, when you take a guy who's so good at what he's good at, but he's just not meant for your scheme, like, do you think he could handle it if you forced it, or do you just think it would be?
It's really interesting. I think if you were to take Tyler Booker, like from my perspective as an offensive coordinator, when I've had guys like that don't really fit the scheme I want, but they're just such a good player and they can do so many good things, you have to almost adjust your scheme to them in a sense. And if they're a really good gap power pull guy, pin pull, those type of things, find ways to incorporate that into your offense to not force them completely out of their comfort zone. And so I think if they did take Tyler Booker, I think you might see a little bit more inside zone type of stuff come into Kubiak's scheme.
A little more
which is, if you look at what Sean McVay's done in LA, he's kind of pivoted to that in a way where he went from really being an outside zone team those early years with the Rams to then, okay, when we got Stafford and we're going to go more to this, straight back play action, not nearly as much boot action like I did with Goff. We're going to go more to the inside zone, and that's how we're going to do this. They changed their interior of that line. So it'll be interesting. It really will. Like I love Tyler Booker. I think he could be a good fit. Now, if we had Schottenheimer, I think it's an ideal fit. And it's like, as soon as, he's there, you're running to the podium to put your ticket in.
Yeah.
But I think it's more of an interesting situation on what do you do now with this scheme? Is it a question of, Clint, hey, can you add some of this inside zone to our offense,
right?
With John Benton. And I think that's one thing they're going to lean on too. And it sounds like they already are, which is, and John said this on his show on 710, that John Benton really is helping change how they're evaluating O-linemen.
Yeah.
Since he's come into the building and their personnel department as well. And I think that's maybe what they're going to have to discuss is like, how have you guys done it before? This is where you've been missing things. This is how we're going to fix it and pivot to it. So
yeah. I agree. It's probably not the move for them. And obviously watching Saints film, as you saw, they are obviously outside zone dominant, but I was impressed by like, they did have a little bit of almost everything in there. And I was impressed by how they were able to install and coach all that and have it look like they have maybe 30 snaps of inside zone in the season. And it looks like, if you just watch the cut up of it, it looks like they major in it, even though they don't, so that is impressive. But yeah, it's so funny watching him. It's like, damn, I trained my eye to look for guys like you for so long.
Exactly.
And now you don't work here anymore. It's just funny. But yeah, I thought it was cool that we both omitted him. But that we both see him as a good player still. So
oh yeah, he and that was the thing for me when I was looking at guys and who I'm going to watch is I had to go back and really study what Clint Kubiak, John Benton, and Rick Dennison did down in New Orleans, and even to a point when Clint was in Minnesota, what did they do? And they were very outside zone, but they do mix the inside in as like a change up, which is good. And You don't see a lot of gap pull with them, which is I found interesting. They're not a very big gap pull scheme base in there. Like there's less of that than anything. But for everything they do, they have a counter off of it.
For sure. Yep.
Which we didn't have last year.
Right.
You're not going to see them, as you alluded to, and Maddie alluded to, I alluded to, and so many others. Hey, when they run this play to the right side, they're actually going to hand it off. But when they run a ball to the left side, it's a play action.
Yeah,
we're not going to see that this year. I don't think.
No. Yeah, it's really cool how much like layers they have to every look. You know, every layer has a wrinkle. You know, it's just such a sound scheme. Like I don't know what the ceiling is, but the floor is so high just by virtue of the structure being so well fleshed out.
I think the thing about this scheme is it really does marry well to a aggressive defense because you know your offense will be able to at least sustain some drives and move the ball consistently. You're not in what we were last year, where I think Mike Macdonald may have wanted to be more aggressive with either his sim packages, simulated packages and things he did, but he couldn't trust that the offense could consistently sustain drives to give that defense a break. So I can't go and be aggressive because I can't give up a play, because our offense can't necessarily go back down the field and get points. So I think that's where it's going to be a little bit different this year. But let's just jump into some of these questions before we get to the mock draft here. So we got Brandon Myers in here, and he goes, Seattle Overlord podcast gives you guys a salute, which is great. Thank you, Brandon.
Brandon.
Old school Seahawks in here. Griff is the dog. Getting a lot of love here, Griff, right off the bat. Ian Victor comes in, and he goes, hey, what's up, guys? About Quinn Ewers, I know there's connections with him and Schneider, but I can see a team like the Rams or Cowboys taking him. Would you agree or disagree?
I'll jump in. I mean,
you go for it.
Yeah, McVay is interesting because I think what he wants above all is what is your base in the pocket like, and will you just park your ass where it needs to go and where you throw the ball? And I mean, Stafford is like the super mega charged up, souped up version of Goff, right? Where like they have a similar process, but Stafford's arm is Stafford's arm, which allows him to attack certain windows. I haven't watched enough of viewers to speak on him as I know you have, but I mean, he has mobility, and obviously like McVay likes the boot game, right? Historically, but I think McVay would view Ewers the same way Schneider would, in that part, sit him on the bench, develop him, coach him up to be firm in the pocket, see what he can handle procedurally speaking. Because obviously the arm is there and the height is there to work a bit. What do you think about Ewers and McVay specifically?
I think he fits into the Rams system. He fits into this Kubiak, Shanahan, McVay system. Like, it's built for his skill set in a lot of ways. Yeah. It's getting him to understand to sit in the pocket, come out, get to your rhythm, and here's the windows. Like, the thing about, and why I think the other interesting thing about Kubiak's system and Shanahan and McVay's is the quarterback doesn't make line checks. He doesn't adjust protection. That is solely on the center. That's there, or the most experienced lineman on that line at the guard or center position makes those calls. So really the quarterback comes up and he's really looking at linebacker to safeties to corners. He's really just worried about the coverage. He has no real say in what goes on with the protection. And so for a guy like that, I think McVay would definitely be a sit on the bench, and we're going to, coach you up, and then, watch Quinn Ewers come in, and all of a sudden it's like, oh crap, we're looking at Jared Goff, Matt Stafford again, operating the offense. I don't think he's a fit for the Cowboys because I don't see him fitting Schottenheimer's scheme and what Schotty likes to do. But I could see a team, Rams. I could even see the Niners, if they need a backup for Brock Purdy, taking a swing on Ewers in, late day 2, early day 3. I think he's going to be in play for Seattle. I think he could even be in play for Vegas, for the Raiders, if they don't take someone high up in this draft class and they go with a Sam Darnold or someone like that, and they're going to pivot to a guy, and take someone. But now we're not forced to take one later on because we've gone after and we traded for Matt Stafford or got Sam Darnold. I could see Quinn Ewers being a guy because, again, he fits a little bit of the type of offense Pete likes to run, that obviously Mike likes to run, which is we're going to run the ball and then we're going to take explosive shot plays off a boot and stuff. The stuff that we asked Russ to do initially at the beginning of his career. run the ball. We get this defense to come in, put more guys in the box. We'll boot you and we'll give you easy throws to open guys. So I definitely think that could be, a situation for Quinn. We got another one here from Ian. Did you guys also hear that Schneider also admitted that free agency this past year was botched? Yeah, I did actually hear him kind of allude to that. He didn't really say it that bluntly, but he kind of did allude to it being that situation.
Yeah, and I think that probably speaks to a scouting department that doesn't know their coaching staff super great at that point, because they were trying to be like they were the way that they acquire guys. They were trying to predict what would fit a scheme that even the coaching staff didn't completely know yet, because only very few of them have worked in the system before. So,
yeah, no, it'll be interesting to see. We got Howard M in here. Would you prefer Seattle to draft an O-line with the first pick or take best player available? I think Seattle's pivoted in the last 3 to 4 drafts of going best player available. What do you think, Griff?
No, I agree with you. And you also have the luxury of not really need to worry about it too much when you're drafting higher in each round. The draft kind of those two elements align for you. And then fortunately, they might be in a position at pick 18. That's where they're picking, right? 18. Okay, yeah. They might be in a position 18 where the best player available might be an offensive lineman anyway. But I mean, it would be, I think they should go BPA, and I don't think that can really hurt them, because I don't think they're so loaded at even their strongest spots that it would be redundant. There might be an extreme case here or there, but I think ultimately, like, they don't have to worry about it too much.
No, I agree. And I think free agency will be really interesting to see, because that's going to give us a really good picture. If they go out and spend money on a Drew Dahlman or someone of that, caliber, or even if they do like a Drew Dahlman and say a Tevin Jenkins and move Tevin Jenkins to guard as part of their plan, kind of do the Mekhi Becton situation and double down in 2 areas, I think it alleviates the pressure to go O-line right away first pick. You kind of let the board fall to you in that situation. It may even potentially lead to Seattle going, hey, some of the guys that we really like, we could trade back even in the first round and get another pick and still get someone that we like that would be a best player available for us. Because listening to Adam Schefter today, and I know everyone's got their different view of Schefter, he said something on ESPN's show where he said that the player you get at 10 this year, even, or 12 in the first round, really in past drafts would be like the 35th guy off the board in most other draft classes. It's just such a small, really true first round gradable class.
Right.
And so, you listen to Jim Nagy said that at Senior Bowl, where he only had like 8 guys that were truly first round graded guys. So again, you got to look at it that way. What I don't want to see is I don't want to see an LJ Collier situation again. That's what I don't want to see.
Right. Yeah, agreed. And fortunately with their D-line, we might be able to avoid that. There will be no desperation pick at D-line at pick 18.
Exactly. Here's Sean Thompson. Hey, fellas, what QB would you take in the 2nd or 3rd rounds? Great show. I'll let you go, Griff. You go first. Who would you take?
Man, I'm just not versed enough in the quarterback class yet. Based off of my exposure, I mean, look, to me, Dart is a 3rd rounder. But it sounds like, fate is just flinging him way up there. I mean, like, I like the traits. Okay. But like, he was botching under center snaps in Mobile. Like, well, forget about like, how well can you play under center? Like, let's get the exchange down first, with the center. I've seen a very little bit of McCord, and like, if you want to take him in the 4th round, like, I'm not going to, like, sure, why not? I really have a sure why not attitude about quarterback at round 3, 4 and beyond, like, I really don't have a lot of dogma. How about you though?
For me, McCord's still the guy I'd ideally like to see, because I've seen him do some things that are very Kubiak Shanahan system kind of based. The other guy for me that's interesting is Tyler Shuck, and a lot of people are scared because of his age. But I think he's got an ability where if you wanted to pivot earlier off of Geno, you could. With him, like after a year maybe of Geno or even 2. It's very interesting with this class. And again, I'm the same way. Like 3rd round, take a swing, take a shot. If it doesn't work, great. you're not burning as much necessarily in that regard. And you can always go then if you fill other holes this year, you could go and move up next year for a quarterback. If Garrett Nussmeier or Drew Alar or one of these guys really speaks to John Schneider, he can truly go, okay, the rest of this roster is really assembled. Now we're in a situation where we want to go get that franchise guy here. We're going to go make a play. We're going to push our chips into the quarterback market of the draft next year and really go get the guy.
Right.
But I think they could take a swing on multiple guys in that area. Will Howard's another one that I think could be an interesting guy that, might speak to John Schneider just because he's got the size. He can make all the throws. We saw that through the college football playoff.
Right.
The thing for me with Will Howard that's really interesting is he was on a stacked Ohio State team, like probably one of the best college football teams we've seen in a while for talent. But he wasn't necessarily just carried by them. He actually made some critical plays throughout that run for them to the national championship victory, where he needed to step up and make a play, and he did. The throw in the national championship on third down and, some conversions he made with his feet. Like he's got a bit of a gamer in him, which, again, could speak to, John Schneider and Mike Macdonald going, hey, that's a guy we want to take a shot on.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, I do think it's interesting how Howard is being talked about in contrast to how McCarthy was talked about last year.
Yes.
Because just pure raw, tangible tools, how far apart are they really? And then McCarthy was asked to do anything at Michigan, but when he was he delivered, right? So I don't know. I do think it's weird how Howard is being talked about given that.
We got one here from Mookie Alexander. He goes, what are the chances Sundell could end up being the starting center this year? I think those are higher than people realize.
I seem to like him internally.
I liked him a lot when they picked him up last year and I saw him. I really got on the Sundell bandwagon as someone where I was like, I think this guy might be a steal and kind of one of those finally we found a hidden gem again kind of guys.
Yeah.
Listening to Macdonald talk about me and just, again, following Macdonald's kind of body language, we had Pete talk. I kind of look at how Macdonald kind of amps up a little bit when he talks about somebody. He got that way very much talking about Sundell. I think there's a very strong chance that Sundell could push to be a starter this year on that. If they don't find someone they like, and it could come down to him and Olu running this thing, I think there's a chance Sundell could do it.
All right. Yeah, we'll see.
So with that, let's actually get into a mock draft. So I know that's something that, our listeners like to, be a part of. So I will bring that up on the screen here. So there we go. So we're going to try a different simulator this time, everybody. We're going to be going with NFL Draft Buzz. I've watched Brian Nimhauer use it, and it looks like it's a pretty good format, honestly, and pretty accurate with their rankings in a lot of areas, which I kind of like. Some of these are still all over the place when it comes to the rankings and such. So it's already set up and queued up to go. So we'll go through this, Griff. If there's a trade possibility, we may take it. If not, we'll just continue with what Seattle's picks are.
Okay.
So we'll start this draft and see how it kind of falls for us. So as we go through here, we can kind of follow from the top after it's done through its picks. But yeah, I'm going to be interested to see kind of who we're left with here.
You think Genty goes top 10?
I think he is definitely a talent there. I don't know if there's a team there that really wants to take him there. Whoa.
Yeah.
This thing, we're going to reset the draft. That was odd. It auto-picked for us. That's not cool. Give me 1 second here. That's not supposed to happen. I don't know why it did that. Give me 1 second here, guys. We might actually have to pivot to a different simulator. Don't want anyone auto-picking for me and Griff. They're not going to see the board the same way we do. So to answer your question, though, Griff, I honestly look at it and I go, I think Genty is definitely a top 10 pick.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I just don't know if there's a team there that I would say, yeah, we're going to spend the money on, the capital on that area. Like, I just don't see it.
I mean, I think most people, it might be like an overdetermination where they're just kind of oversimplifying, but I think a lot of people think about Vegas and Pete and Chip at 6, but I don't think they're going to take him at.
No, I don't either. I think it's very much going to be some team's going to get him in the 15 to the 20s. And I think it'll be interesting to see, the value they get for him once they get him. So we're pivoting, Griff. Okay. We're going to use Pro Football Network instead. And, I do like this one. It does offer you trades, which generally have some decent value. So we'll enter the draft and try this again here. So we'll see how this goes, and we'll get down and see who got picked. So we got a couple trades that are offered to us. Dallas wants us to go right out of the first round. We're not even going to entertain that trade. Minnesota is offering us a pick next year. No, I don't think so. Miami, same thing. I don't like any of these.
Agreed.
So we're going to stay in here, and we're going to pick at 18 for Seattle. So off the board, Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders. I don't think Shedeur is going to Cleveland. I think how Shedeur has handled this for himself, I think there's a good chance that Shedeur may fall farther than what most people expect.
Okay.
So we'll go, Shedeur's gone, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter goes to New England. And just like you said, Gentry's gone off the board to the Raiders, Mason Graham, Malachi Starks. Interesting, the Saints went with Will Campbell here. And I hate that pick because that's just going to give us some nightmares. Will Johnson going to the Niners.
Yep.
But there you go. So Tyler Booker off the board at 13. Tyler Warren off at 14. So unfortunately, we're not going to. And even Jalen Walker is off the board at 17. Yeah. So
I don't know. I don't know about Malachi going to the top 10. I'm seeing that a lot. That just seems rich for a safety. I think he's awesome. I think he's awesome, but I feel like he's not going to go higher than like 14, but I don't know.
Okay, so who we've got here on the board? We've got Calvin Banks Jr., Membu, Derek Harmon's on here from Oregon, Enamawari from South Carolina. To be honest, though, I'm going to go look at defense right now, and I want to see what the edge is. So Mike Green's still there, Shamar Stewart. That's a little rich for me to take Jack Sawyer, even though I really like him as a player and as a leader.
Mm-hmm.
But D-tackle, Kenneth Grant is still there, and I really like Kenneth Grant.
Yeah.
What are you feeling here, defense or offensive side?
Man, I feel inclined to go offense. I can't stop thinking about the O-line. I would probably go O-line if I had to choose. But I have a question for you, though. So you've watched a lot of Texas. Can Calvin Banks, can he play guard? Would you even consider that? Yes.
Calvin Banks, in my opinion, he would be like how we talked about Membu bumping in. Calvin Banks could go play left guard for you, and then or right guard, whichever side really you wanted him on. And I think he then could be a tackle of the future. Say things don't go well at Charles Cross discussion, Calvin Banks should play left tackle for you in 2026.
Yeah. So what would you do, though? Of all these players, I know you really like the Michigan tackle, D-tackle.
I really like Kenneth Grant because for me, what I'm looking at is I truly believe John Schneider is going to do something different in this offseason with the O-line.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're actually going to go and address some things there. And I think you do kind of what Philadelphia has done, and you go and increase on a strength. You add Kenneth Grant to Leonard Williams and Byron Murphy and that front seven. I think you're truly giving another piece for Mike Macdonald to create havoc with, because you're not going to be relying on Leonard Williams necessarily to play as many snaps, because you can roll Kenneth Grant and Byron Murphy out there and let Leonard Williams, who's, again, he's getting older, be the type of guy that you can have, come in on pass situations and play his snap count less. Like you think about those LOB days, we had such a rotation on that D-line where Cliff Averill and Michael Bennett were basically rotational players the year we won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So for me, I look at it and I go, I think Kenneth Grant, if he's there, I think, you're getting a pretty solid player. And you look at his size, 6'3", 342, but he moves so well for that size. They also don't really have a nose tackle on this team.
Right.
And that's one thing Mike Macdonald had in Michael Pierce in Baltimore. He's had it at different stops for himself at Michigan. I just think, you're getting a guy that really his first step in his hands, like it says even in here, are so good. I honestly think Kenneth Grant would make another bigger impact on Seattle's defense.
Sure. All right. Let's go, Grant. I'll never say no to a 300-pounder on the D line.
All right. Let's take Kenneth Grant here, see how the rest of this board falls to us. The interesting one that I've seen, okay, so New England's in here. They want to take us to drop a few spots. I'm not interested. That's an interesting one, but again, I don't really do in these mock drafts. I don't do third picks in 2026.
Yeah.
So we'll look at what happened after we, took Kenneth Grant. So Benjamin Morris, Kelvin Banks, there he goes to the Chargers, who now just have a stacked offensive line. Josh Simmons gets traded up for by the Giants. Membu fell to the Texans. I think that is way too high for Cameron Williams. Like way too high for him. Urzuri is another interesting guy. Mike Green goes to Buffalo. Kansas City goes with receiver. And Shamar Stewart, of course. The Eagles just get richer in this draft world. So there's Loveland went to the Vikings. I think that's a good spot for him.
Yeah.
There's Jahad Campbell.
Zabel.
Gray Zabel goes to the Patriots. Now, Zabel's interesting because I've seen drafts where he's up higher, and I've seen drafts where he's fallen to this area.
Yeah. I think the variance is due to him playing at North Dakota State.
Yeah.
He's a little underexposed, I think, to people.
I would agree with that. So, we look at this, and then there you go. 2 picks before us, who I actually was planning on us taking in this round is Embo there. So, yeah, so it'll be interesting. So let's go look at the offense. We'll look at the full board. Harold Fanning Jr. is there. Deion Walker, but let's go look at offense. Let's go look at O-tackle and guard. So Ratledge is still there. Like the guard class went fast in this block. Like that's the fastest I've seen where we've had that much of a drop off. And then you look here at the O-tackle. So Emory Jones is still there, but I see him again as a pure tackle. I don't think he slides in as well.
What do you think about Frazier? Miles Frazier.
I like Frazier. I do. I also like Tate Ratledge.
Yeah. I mean, Ratledge is good.
So I think he's an interesting one. I think we could take Ratledge and maybe get Frazier in round 3. I'm just surprised at how quickly this board went. O-line. Like I didn't expect Embo to go at 48. Like I was like, and then center, obviously, Jared Wilson, Jake Majors, it'll be interesting. So do you want to go Ratledge or do you want to go Frazier here?
I think I'll go Ratledge. Just don't want to test.
Do you want to look at tight end?
Oh yeah. Because there's more.
No worries, Griff. Take your time. I'll jump into some questions here, guys. Is Griff dealing with something going on in the background? Let's see here. What else do we got in here? Here we go from Mookie. Do you think it's possible Seahawks trying to angle to pick up a day 1 or day 2 pick in 2026? I think that's a very strong possibility, Mookie, honestly. It's something that's been in the back of my head that I think they could do that, especially if they want to go after a quarterback next year to try and give themselves some ammunition to do it. I think that's something that's definitely a possibility. Let's have another look here. Yeah, Brendan Myers, exactly. When Howard went and, was really...
Sorry about that.
It's all good, Griff.
Fight over their dog toy at the perfect time. Sorry.
That's all good, man. Will Howard screaming in Jack Sawyer's face after the fumble 6 was hype as hell. Yes, I agree. And I think he had that type of leadership quality in Ohio State. So we'll put one more up here from old school Seahawk, and then we'll get back in the draft. If you're willing to take a flyer on a 3rd rounder, would you trade a 3rd for Milton? Griff, what do you think?
I don't know about that. I don't know if I don't, 3rd for Milton. Actually, I'd consider that.
I would too.
I would consider that. Yeah. Yeah, I'd think about that for sure.
So we've got tight ends here. Mason Taylor's an interesting one. Terrence Ferguson, Elijah Arroyo is another guy, Gunnar Helmet. There's a lot of tight ends still in here.
Yeah.
Luke Lachey is another guy from Iowa that I like. Like, we could still get a tight end. Receiver, wow, the receiver room, like Trey Harris still there. Jalen Royal's still there. I think we go and we take Tate Ratledge and see how the board falls to us from that point.
Okay.
Just looking at him, like he's 6'6", 320.
He doesn't have any leverage issues for his height.
No, and he's actually got good lateral movement. And for a wide zone scheme, I think he's a good fit.
Agreed.
So let's go with Tate Ratledge here. And he also started most of his time at Georgia in the SEC, which quality of competition is going to be up there. So we'll take Tate Ratledge. See how the rest of this board falls to us. All right, so Atlanta's here. Not a chance. We're not dropping that far in this draft, considering how it's going. This one actually is kind of interesting to me. Drop a couple spots, pick up a pick in 127, but we go a bit of a gap there from then to where we would have picked. So do you want to make that trade, or do you want to counter with him?
Oh, let's see what I would take that straight up, but
let's see what it looks like, the board right now.
Okay.
So Miles Frazier's still there. Receiver-wise, Tez Johnson's on the board. We missed out on Jalen Royals. Ricky White's still there. Nick Nash is still there. Pat Bryant from Illinois is still there. Jalen Knoll from Iowa State's there. Tight ends, Gunnar Helm. Well, wow. The tight end board moved quickly.
I like Helm. I like Mason Taylor a lot too. Obviously, he's gone. I like Helm, though. How do you feel about Helm?
I like Helm as well. I think he has some qualities, again, that play well into that, what we're looking for. And you were talking about a guy that can pluck the ball out of the air. That's something I think Gunnar Helm does really well. And he's good at navigating spaces. So like how we were talking about the Zorro route, the over routes in this offense that are built in, I think they build to Gunnar Helm's strength. And he is a decent run blocker. He's not overly great, but he is decent. And I think he could still add about 10 pounds to his frame and still be athletic.
Yep. And he can play the Y. I mean,
he could. Exactly. And he gives you some flexibility. Let's look at the quarterbacks quickly here at 82. So there's Quinn Ewers, Will Howard, Riley Leonard, Kyle McCord, Tyler Shuck. There's still a lot of quarterbacks here that I think we could get. Our pick next after this will be at 137. So I have a bit of a drop. Do you think we could trade back with someone like Denver, slide a couple spots, and pick up a pick in between there?
Yeah, sure. Might as well try.
Let's try that. So let's go to Denver, and let's see if we give them our pick 82, take pick 85, and let's go pick 121 and see what they do. No, they don't like it. What if we fall a little bit farther? Say, let's go to pick, let's try the Houston Texans here and just see. Let's see if we can do that with them. We'll give them 82. They give us 89, 127, and we give them 196. Nope. Okay, we're going to stick and pick here. Who do you want to go with? Gunnar Helm?
Yeah, let's go Helm.
Okay, so we'll take Gunnar Helm. Again, Dylan Gabriel's off the board. All right, so Dallas comes in, and we're not going to do that trade. Quarterback. So Kyle McCord's still there. Someone we both have talked about. We're in round 4. I think this is a potential spot where we could take Kyle McCord. Defensive side, Savion Jones is someone I'm interested in.
Okay.
He's really flashed at Senior Bowl. I think he could be a helpful edge for them.
Kymon Rucker is another edge that I think is a McDonald edge.
Yep.
Kind of the beefier guy type. Like he's really skilled too. I mean, he can corner. Like his corner moves are really good. I do like McCord though at 137. I wouldn't say no to that.
Yeah, and you know, linebacker wise, there's Jack Kaiser. Jeffrey Bassa is another one, or Bassa is someone that I'm interested in as well. Same with Cody Lindbergh. Are some guys that I'd be interested in as linebackers you could take. And someone else too, Demetrius Knight Jr. from South Carolina is another guy that I've, seen. Safety wise, Maxon Hooker's someone I'm interested in, and Craig Woodson's another one. Then again, I think are guys you could take later on to fill voids. Cornerback, really only one I've really done a lot of studying on is Jalen Smith. Other than that, there's not a lot of corners in here that I'm familiar with. So do we go with a quarterback here?
I would. Hold on. I'm going to let my dog out really quick.
No worries, Griff. All right, guys. We'll take the pick here while Griff's off. We'll take Kyle McCord. And we'll see how the rest of this board falls for us here.
All right, I'm back.
All right, so we took Kyle McCord, Griff.
All right.
So looking at this now, like Nick Nash is still there, receiver, and I liked him in San Jose State. But let's take a look at, so the picks we've taken so far, we've addressed the interior D-line, the O-line, tight end, quarterback. Let's see is there anybody here? Clay Webb's interesting to me.
Yeah.
Just to give us another guy.
What do you think about Cooper?
Cooper's another one I've been kind of intrigued by. There's Cooper Mays even, but Tyler Cooper's someone I've been interested in. Let's look at the O tackles and see if there's any guys in here. Yeah, again, the O tackle market. It went really fast in this draft. Like, we've kind of had to pivot a little bit more than I wanted to, but Tyler Cooper is definitely someone that I'd be interested in. Like, he's 6'5", 305. Again, he's a bigger guy, but again, I've seen him be mobile. Like, he can move.
Definitely, yeah.
So I think, again, he's a guy that would fit into what Kubiak's system is. On the defensive side, what's the edge group? Like, again, the edge class here now is just kind of
nothing.
It's very bland and bleak. D tackle wise, there's not much. What do we look at receiver and see what we got in here? So Nick Nash is still there. We got a comment in here from Howard saying, look at center. Okay, we'll take a look over at the center market. There's nobody in there that I'm really intrigued with.
Is Lampkin the guard? Is he the really undersized guy?
He's the guy that's like 5'10", 270. He would be a perfect fullback.
Yeah, there you go.
That's what I would make him, is I'd turn him into a fullback. So do you feel like we go with a receiver like Nick Nash, or do we take Cooper here?
Let's go Nash, because
the other one that's intriguing, so I'll throw one other name out at you, is Jimmy Horn Jr. He's just small.
Yeah.
Nick Nash, on the other hand, 6'2", 198. He's a bigger guy. Like, he's got really good IQ for football. Like, and he's a slot guy.
Yeah.
So I think Nick Nash might be the smart pick here.
Okay, let's go Nash.
Okay, so we'll take Nick Nash. All right, so we're up again. Look at the big board. Damn, this is a really weird draft. I've never had one go this way. Tyler Cooper's there.
Cooper's there. Who is left at linebacker?
So at linebacker, Cody Lindbergh's still there.
Okay.
Who else is still there?
Cody Simon is the name. I was hoping that Dumas Johnson would be there still.
Oh, fair enough. Carson Bruner's still there. UW all the way.
He may not even be listed, and I don't know how. What's his name? I think it's Jordan Turner. He's the guy who transferred from Wisconsin to Michigan State.
Okay, let's see. I'll type it in.
He's not even listed. He may not even be on the board. Man, I watched him and Njong Maeda last year at Wisconsin, and I thought Turner was better than Njong Maeda, and I don't know how his stock is so low, but man,
let's see if I do this and go all and just search, because he might not be listed as a off the ball. No, he's not even listed.
That's crazy. Maybe I'm just way off base with him. I don't know. Let's go. I mean,
Lindbergh to me or Cooper is the pick here.
Yeah, I would go Cooper, because I think I like Cooper more than I like the remaining linebackers, period. So,
okay. Let's take Tyler Cooper here. We're back up on the board. And you know what? Cody Lindbergh didn't go.
Yeah, might as well take him at that point.
You know what? I do like Cody Lindbergh's game. To me, he would be a C+B version of Campbell for the Detroit Lions. Like, he can cover, he can move laterally. I like him. I think he again comes in and he's an upgrade maybe over Drake Thomas. He helps you out in special teams. So I think we take Cody Lindbergh here.
Okay.
All right. And then we're left with Taj Brooks is an interesting running back out of Texas Tech.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're going to take a running back. I always neglect.
Want to look at this running back class and see Devin Neal,
Trevor Etienne. I always neglect running back in mock drafts, but it's like they're going to take one, so I probably.
I think Taj Brooks could be an interesting one.
Okay.
5'9", he's a little bit smaller, but he's a 5-year guy. He can move, though, and he kind of bounces off a contract. And we're talking about we're not going to be a downhill team as much. We're going to be that outside zone.
Yeah.
Like, he's a good change of pace, and I think he gives some things that maybe we don't have. Like, he's a really good out of the backfield receiver. So I think he'd be an interesting guy in this offense. So let's go with Taj Brooks. And all right, our last pick here. So we'll look at this whole thing. Jimmy Horn's there, Trevor Etienne. What area do you want to look at? Do you want to look at safety?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So Craig Woodson's still there. I think he's that perfect third safety.
Okay.
He's really good against the run. Even to what they're writing up, I've seen it on film. You know, he makes good tackles. Like, he doesn't get, lose tackles very often, but he can also help when it comes to carrying tight ends if you need to carry them up the field. So I think he'd be an interesting guy in this scheme.
Okay. What do you think of Shiloh, just as in general?
I think he's going to struggle in the NFL.
Yeah, I agree.
I think so. We're going to download this. Now, here's my question, Griff. How strapped for you or for time?
I'll probably have to run here in about 10 minutes.
Do you have time to run through one quick more?
If we speed run it. Yeah.
All right. So let's do that. We'll quickly flip this over and we'll go to Pro Football Network or Pro Football Focus. And we'll quickly run through one because this was I'm even old school Seahawks says, take a mulligan on this one and choose Membu in the first. So what we'll do is we'll go with a quick 7. I'll put it on turbo speed. Positional care, draft needs, we'll put there. Randomness, we'll lower it down. We'll put the Seahawks. We'll enter this draft. And we'll try and get this to actually fall for us the way it should. So now we're on, PFF. So we'll start this draft and see how it goes for us. All right. So this draft fell a little bit differently off the start. So Travis Hunter went, Shedeur Sanders went, which I think is more realistic to the Giants. But you know what's interesting? Mookie did just say something in this chat, Griff. Abdul Carter stress reaction in his right foot and surgery is possible. I guess it's fracture.
Yeah.
But that could be interesting to see if that affects his draft status.
Yeah.
Will Campbell, Jahdae Barron, James Pierce, Mike Green again to San Francisco. But I wonder, Tyler Warren went there. Okay. So what do we want to do here, Griff? We won't trade. We'll just pick. What do you want to do here?
I think Mike Macdonald will threaten John Schneider if Malachi Starks is there and they don't take him. Oh, that's tough. They might take Starks. And look, they've got 600 plus snaps available for a third safety.
Yep.
So there would be year one impact. He's a phenomenal player.
Mikael Williams is there from Georgia.
Yeah.
Shamar Stewart. Let's go look at the defensive side. So let's go look at edge. This is your edge group that's still there.
I mean, do you think they have to take offensive line at 18?
I don't think they do.
Okay.
I don't think Christian Haynes is a bust. I think he may actually have the ability to be better in this system than he was last year and what he was. So, like, here's some other guys, Derek Hammond, DJ Sanders, Shamar Stewart, like D tackle wise, we're talking about interior. Like, this board, I would say we're not going to go interior because Kenneth Grant's already off it, the Cardinals. So I think this could be a best player available situation. Josh Simmons is there, Malachi Starks. I think it's between Starks and Williams here for me.
All right. In that case, I would go Starks just because I think there's more snaps in year 1 and year 2 for safety than edge.
Okay, so you want to go Malachi Starks?
Yeah, let's go Malachi.
All right, Malachi Starks it is. All right, so based off this, Tyler Booker didn't go till 48. So this draft kind of is falling very differently than our last one. Carson Schlesinger is there. Xavier Restapro, which I think is an interesting receiver. Xavier Thomas as a corner is someone that's very interesting to me out of Florida State.
Yeah.
Let's see what our our O tackle and so Donovan Jackson's there. And again, I think we take Donovan Jackson. If we do what you just did with Starks, this is a point at pick 50. I think you take that lineman. Yeah. And, I think that's the guy we go with. So we'll take Donovan Jackson.
You don't think twice about that.
No, you take him right there. He ends up being your guard. Okay, so.
All right. I immediately saw the 2 tight ends. 4 of them. Shit.
Yeah.
All right, so let's take this opportunity to talk about Arroyo and Taylor. How do you differentiate them? Who do you like more? Because I like all 4 of those guys.
Yeah, so do I. I even like really all 5. I even like Terrence Ferguson as well. Yeah. The thing for me when I look at now, I know Arroyo's got some sort of injury right now. He when I look at his analysis of him, they haven't brought that up yet, but his run blocking grade's okay. Again, PFF take them with what they are. He's, we're looking at games played in this year. Inline snaps was 165. He had a lot more slot snaps. So his tight end 2, you could see some use there in Kubiak's system. When I look at Mason Taylor, though, it's more, you can see more snaps and you can see them more evenly spread out.
Yeah.
He's more, you can use him in both situations. I think he is a bit bigger in weight. So I think he's a little bit easier to go with. I would go with Mason Taylor personally.
Okay.
I think that's the better one.
Yep. I
think he gives you a little bit more and a better fit in Kubiak's scheme.
Agreed. I really like his game, well-rounded. So,
all right. So we'll go with our tight end so we don't miss out this time. We'll take Mason Taylor here. Damn, Jalen Miller went to the Jets at 92. Okay. That's not going to happen, which is on the screen right now, which is Jackson Dart at pick 137, even though I agree. Damian Martinez is an interesting running back for me. I really think he'd be a good fit in this system. Pick 137 quarterback-wise. Kyle McCord's still there. Quinn Ewers is still there. Tyler Shuck's still there. I still think this is a good spot to take a quarterback. I'm not going to include Jackson Dart in that decision.
So, pick 137, who would you take between Ewers and McCord?
Oh, So Ewers is put on weight. He's now 215. He's put on 5 pounds. He's 6'2". Kyle McCord is, what is he again? I think he's a bit bigger. He's 6'3", 220.
You get the benefit of knowing that these guys don't have to play right away. So
correct.
There's merit in going for the guy that you think has more tools.
So one thing I'll say is because McCord's still there and Tyler Shuck's still there, I could be okay leaving this. I just want to see what's at the D tackle market right now.
And I'm not against taking a running back there either.
No. So this is the inside. Simon Barrow Jr. Zeke Biggers is interesting to me later on. Tonka's another interesting dude. And so's Nazir Stackhouse. You can get a later D lineman now. What does the edge class actually look like? RJ Obin's an interesting guy to me.
Okay.
He doesn't have the sack production, but he's an interesting build. So I would wonder if you could use him in some sort of way, but the edge group's just gone.
He definitely stood out when watching Kaiser. He was definitely a guy I took note of.
Like so size-wise, he's 6'3", 262. So he's of that bigger edge quality.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I think a guy we could get potentially later on. So what do you want to do here, Griff? Do you want to go quarterback again? Or do you want to look at running backs?
See, I think they're going to take a running back somewhere in round 4. I think that's what they're aiming for. So
Damian Martinez is the one I like the most.
Okay. Yeah.
So just to give you a look at him, he was at Oregon. He's 6 foot, 232. But like, we're talking about a guy that 6 yards of carry all 3 years.
Yep. It's pretty consistent.
He's a bully running back. That's what he is.
And you think
basically 1,000 yards almost. Again, he's going to be a better guy, I think, in this scheme.
Okay.
And based on who's left, I think he's your best value here. So
okay.
We'll go with a running back and we'll take a quarterback in round 5 and see what's left for us. So Dart goes. Oh, Kyle McCord and Quinn Ewers are still there.
So you still have the board won't make the choice for you. You got
no, it won't. It didn't want to help me here. So we're round 5. If Quinn Ewers is there in round 5, I think John takes him.
Definitely, because that's his MO. That's how he thinks about the position.
So I think Quinn Ewers, I think he's going to look at Quinn. If John's looking at this, I look at it and go, Quinn Ewers has been a 2-year starter at Texas, where Kyle McCord, yes, he played at Ohio State, but then he went to Syracuse. So competition in the ACC is a little less than the SEC for Quinn Ewers. And Quinn Ewers did have to fend off Archie Manning for a season here. I think they go with Quinn. And we went with Kyle in the last one. Let's go with Quinn in this one.
Okay. I dig it.
So there we go. And now let's go look at receiver. Ricky White is someone I would take.
Okay, so tell me about Ricky White.
So Ricky White at UNLV, he's a bigger guy, but he runs really smooth. So he's 6'1", 190. He's an older guy, but if you look at his stats, like we're talking about a guy in the last 2 years that's had over 2,000 and 2,500 yards.
Yeah.
Durable, a lot of snaps, slot and wide. And he's averaging, you were talking about that 15 to 20 yard dig.
Yeah.
That's something he runs 12, 13, 16 yards. He's the guy, I think, you look at his drop rate, 8%, not very high, contested catch. I think he's a guy you can get, but I don't think we have to take him right now because he's got a couple guys. What I'm actually interested in is what does the center market or interior O-line look like? Jake Majors is still there, and so is Miles Fraser.
Ooh. Yeah, maybe. Well, how do you feel about Majors?
I think if Seattle doesn't take a center, and I think Majors could come in and be a good center.
Okay.
He's, 6'3", 315, but he's intelligent. And that's what we've heard Kubiak allude to. You need to have a smart, intelligent center.
Mm-hmm.
Very few sacks given up. Like this year, he gave up a few more hurries. But I think, and we're talking this late, we're talking what, round 6?
Yeah.
You can get a center here in round 6. I think that's not a bad thing that could potentially be a starter.
So I like the idea of going interior O-line and then seeing what's at receiver after. Okay. So maybe Majors then.
All right, let's take Jake Majors because we did get our guard earlier in Donovan Jackson.
Right.
All right, so now we'll take a look at that receiver room. Damn, Ricky White did go. Where did he go? To Green Bay of all places. Fantastic. Looking at the rest of this group here. That receiver group is Rock Taylor, someone that's interesting out of Memphis. Again, bigger receiver. Again, look, he's got those deeper receiving yards for his catches. We're talking later on in the, draft process here. Not putting up a great set of yards, like 1,000 to 9.
Yeah.
So,
what do you think about Kyron Lacey? He's old, but
I don't know with Kyron Lacey. There's just questions about him, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think they'd probably go with Rock Taylor potentially, but let's have a look here and let's see what's at safety. Anyone stand out to you at the safety room?
You know, I don't know why Malachi Moore is so like undervalued.
Right?
He seems to me like he should be a 4th or 5th rounder. But all the boards I'm seeing, a lot of the mock drafts, they're talking about him like bordering on undrafted. I don't quite get it. I mean, he reminded me of he's a skilled player that just doesn't, he's just not very explosive, but like he knows how to play football.
Okay, and let's look at another position here. Linebacker. That is not a not a good looking group.
They all went.
They all did. Let's take a look at corner. Anyone in here standing out to you? Muhammad's an interesting one for me.
Yep.
He'd be someone I'd be interested in taking a swing at. I'm going to have to go and look at, you know what? I think we go. This is tough right now. Oh, you know what? I want to double down on Jackson Slater.
Okay. Because I have watched him.
I like Jackson Slater. And again, if we're going to, we took Jake Majors. Maybe we don't have Anthony Bradford because I don't think he's going to fit in this offense at all with his skill set. I think he's a power guy, not a zone guy, to the wide zone at least.
Yeah.
I think we take Jackson Slater here.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, so we're appeasing everybody that wants us to go O-line heavy. We went O-line heavy. So let's look at the rest of this. Let's go and see what's in that receiver room. So Rock Taylor's still there.
You might as well.
Yeah, I think so. So we'll take Rock Taylor. And that's it for our draft. I don't think we're getting an A draft here, my friend. I'm interested to see. We got a B-. There we go.
Yeah, I don't know why they feel that way about Donovan Jackson, or Taylor, because I've seen some people talk about Taylor as a fringe first.
It's
and
hilarious.
I don't know. Yeah, go ahead.
It's hilarious though to see our 2 A's are Quinn Ewers in round 5 and Jackson Slater in round 6.
That's funny. That is funny. I'm sure their grade for Malachi is just a positional value thing.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. I think this draft improves the team.
I think it does. I think you've given yourself a good safety to add to the, and because Kobe Bryant is theoretically actually playing in the last year of his deal right now. So you potentially have the answer there if they move off from Kobe Bryant. I don't think they will, though. But you get another chess piece that can free up Devin Witherspoon. You get your guard potential tackle of the future in Donovan Jackson. We get a really good tight end. We add a running back to this room that's a good quality running back. We potentially maybe get QB of the future or developmental quarterback in Quinn Ewers. We get a really good center. We get I think a plus potential backup or depth player in Jackson Slater. And then we add to the receiver room with Tyler Lockett. We add a guy that's got some skills that can run more of the patterns in the Kubiak system, I think, than most people realize.
Yep.
So I'd say between the two drafts, I would be more in favor of this one than our first one.
I lean that way too. I mean, I wouldn't complain about the first one. It would be hard to.
That was a really odd falling draft board, though.
Yeah. That's the thing with that one.
Yeah, it was not a favorable draft board for us, but Griff, I'd just like to say thank you, man, for coming on and doing the show tonight. I know.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed
good time.
it.
So yeah.
I learned about a lot of the prospects too, because I still haven't been able to get to all of them, and having your insight and perspective, I definitely value for sure.
So Griff, what's going on at, over on your and Maddie's channel? What are you guys up to? What's going on there?
We're just doing draft coverage. We haven't really kicked that off yet. Our schedules have to align, balancing different time zones, but we'll get to it in time. We'll be doing mock drafts just like you and the whole Seahawks podcast community. So, if people listening want to check us out, Seattle Overload, you can just type it in on YouTube. It's also uploaded audio to, wherever you get your podcast. So, yeah.
Yeah, guys, and we'll have the link to their channel down in the description of this one. But, I think that's going to do it for tonight, everyone. Make sure, guys, go follow us over on the HawksZone Rundown on any of the audio platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart. We're there on our YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe. Join the membership program we've got going on down in the section below. Become a member of the HawksZone Rundown. There's some cool added bonuses that go with that. And then also, guys, if you're looking for our stuff, head on over to Field Goals. We're now a part of the Field Goals family over there. So if you want to see our write-ups on our podcasts and stuff, head over there. Our last podcast that we did with Parker Blake going around the O-line, really good one if you want to understand that side of the ball for Seattle. He gives us a great breakdown of Seattle, so go check that out over there. And then tomorrow we'll be releasing our interview with Jackson Bevins. We had him on from Cigar Thoughts. That'll be linked down below when that gets posted tomorrow. So outside of that, I just want to thank everybody for joining us on this Mock Draft Monday show with Griff here from Seattle Overload. But thank you, everybody, and have a good night. Go Hawks.